Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Stephen Mominex.
And I'm Brian Gillis. Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching latest releases. However, sadly, put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we missed, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
Hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time. Jets are gonna have their way tonight. Jets are gonna have their say tonight. Those Puerto Rican punks will watch out. Something like that.
You know, I don't know what your background is specifically with musicals, but I do know that you have a dancing background. Just this seems more like it's your thing than mine. And you said you've seen this so many times, so yeah, I imagine you have to have some sort of affection for this movie. Start with that.
Like, yes, there is, like, this emotional thing, but not really. You know, like, one of the last things that I watched with my grandfather in Australia was West Side Story. He did these, and I was talking about it with my Aunt Ada earlier this evening. Like, he would have movie nights where he'd invite his mates over, and usually it was a musical, because he was really into musicals and theater and stage and stuff like that. Which is still something that I'm not really in touch with. Like, yes, I've seen a couple of plays. I've seen, like, La Cage aux Folles, and I saw the LA run of Book of Mormon, and I've seen, like, some smaller things. But my relation to this is that in freshman year of high school, I was in a production of West Side Story.
Who'd you play?
Who do you think I played?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Like, I'm a freshman, so, you know, I'm not going to get one of the big roles.
You're not one of the leads, but I'm guessing you're in the Jets, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually really funny because the way our Jets were built was they were all Asian but me. Like, all of them, even Tony, like, Maria was Asian. Like, almost everyone in the drama department was, except most of the sharks. Like, it was the weirdest thing. It was, like, all the sharks were Hispanic except Maria. She was Asian. It's really funny. But, you know, I went to this, you know, the California Academy of Math and Science. So not the most artistic school to begin with, but I was action. I was Riff's, like, lieutenant, the hot-headed kid who's always trying to start stuff. His biggest moment in this film is during the G. Officer Krupke musical number.
Which is probably the best number, honestly.
It's the coolest number.
It's the more fun one. Like, you know, sorry to interrupt your story, but it's like I sort of grew up around musicals through my grandparents, and like, yeah, you know, they would have tickets to the OC Pacific Arts Theater, I think, if that's even the right name I'm thinking of. But like, yeah, I did sometimes end up going to some shows, and you know, I did see some musicals on VHS through them because they had a collection when I was at their house. And so, yeah, I mean, usually it's numbers like that I would enjoy the most because they would be the more rebellious and fun. And it was like less of the romancy shit that, you know, from the mind of like an 8-year-old that's just kind of like, no, I like these guys. I want to hang out with them because they're funny right now.
Yeah, just a full embrace of the musical tropes, like over the top. That's get a couple of juvenile delinquents like singing about how this cop never gives them a break. Like, it's so whimsical, and what they're singing about at the time was totally just risque. Like, social disease means STD. That was
they
not
talk
okay
specifically
to get
about
past.
Drugs and stuff, and this was what,
a little bit.
1961, and that's the movie.
That's the film. This
the
was
play
mid-50s.
was around like 4 years before. So
We'll just backtrack a little bit. West Side Story, it's Romeo and Juliet in the Bronx. Mexicans, Puerto Ricans versus Italians.
I seriously knew nothing about this movie going in, other than it's just like, okay, it's West Side Story, and it's a musical, and people love it,
Tony,
and it's a Best Picture winner. Like,
everything we'll do.
True story, though. This was a VHS tape that was hanging around my house and still is, but I thankfully held off on that for years because the way that I saw this, I told you this, right, was on 70 millimeter.
Did you get an intermission and everything, like the full-on treatment?
Oh, yeah, totally.
The 20 was it like 15-minute, 12-minute overture? It goes on
No, it's
forever.
it's only like what 5 minutes. That is a cool thing though, at least as far as how to present it. Just that colorful text with those lines coming in, and it was clear right away that it was a Saul Bass sequence. But yeah, you don't really know what you're seeing, and then you're kind of forming the buildings in New York, and then it slips into something
Hmm.
more abstract, and then
And they get that
kind of
really
goes into
weird.
that. But that's really cool.
I'm gonna just be completely frank with our audience. I did not watch this for the
Hmm.
show. I was going to last night.
Very
I was kind of
professional of you.
yeah. Well, to be honest, yeah. And then I was thinking like, oh, maybe I'll just watch the musical numbers.
Uh-huh.
And then what I ended up doing was just talking to my aunt about she calls it a show. People that love musicals, they just call them the shows. So we're talking about the musical numbers, which ones are our favorites and stuff, and we talked about very brief, like who's who in that. Oh yeah, Natalie Wood, like just like a brief overlay of the not just the film, but the song and book. So I didn't catch this one, and it's because I've seen it so many times. Like I said, the last time I saw it was with my grandpa. We only watched half of it, and maybe it's because of that, and then maybe I just didn't really want to watch a 2.5 hour romance right now. And to be honest, it's not a good movie. It's not bad, but this is a Best Picture winner. It's one of the more prestigious musicals to win that honor.
Hmm.
It's so fucking silly
It is.
that
No, no,
these
absolutely.
gangsters are dancing around, and like the death scene, for instance,
Hmm.
of not Tony, of
Bernando.
just that whole scene under the freeway. Yeah, where are we? Where are we meeting? Under the what's the rules? Sticks, bottles, caps. Break it up, guys! Like the way Tony just pops in, just the queerest leading man.
Well, the way we're familiar with gang culture now, especially in the time we grew up,
It's
and it's like, no,
laughable.
I mean, come on, right away, that opening number where you're getting introduced to the gangs and just that little quarrel, all through dance. I mean,
Yeah,
it's that's kind of part of the reason why I don't like musicals that much, or at least it just doesn't work for me as a
seriously.
genre. Is like I don't just something about characters singing what they're feeling just doesn't work for me unless it's usually big. Like I saw Oklahoma for the first time this year, really wasn't into it. Really just a fucking
Still haven't
lame
seen that one.
nothing romance. It's from Fred Zinnemann, but I don't think
Yeah,
that's going to be the
I, I,
beginning of
I
next
know
season. I don't
I
think it
know
should be.
half of the opening, or not opening song, but half of the title
Oh yeah, even
song.
the choreography, it's just like it feels like choreography just for the sake of, hey, that's what you need for a musical. Here, I gotta say, at least it's big. I mean,
Oh, it's
right from
very
that opening
big.
number, like
Hmm.
it's very difficult to call this a musical because it seems more like a ballet. Like that first sequence when
On the basketball courts, like in the streets when they're running
yeah, and
around towards
it
the
is kind of cool. I
camera
mean,
with
there
the.
is some skill in there, so it is kind
Oh
of a
no,
fun watch.
very
But yeah,
tons of skill. Like everyone in this film, I don't know if they were in the Broadway production, but they're all dancers. Like they're actors too, but they're all triple threats. But
hmm
mostly dancers. You have that sequence where it's the opening one for the Jet song, where they're on the seesaws and they're playing basketball and they're doing whatchamacallit, like pirouettes and everything. Like they're dancing their heart out. They're jumping all over the place. They're clearly sweating,
hmm
climbing fences and stuff. I love that song. I mean, maybe it's because I performed it, but it just the way it opens after that overture. You have this very, very, very long overture, and then you get the prologue, and
well,
it,
not
it
only
starts
that, I
off
mean, just
so
that
slowly.
I gotta say
This
though, like the
build
way
up.
that this opens too, like just so great. Like I have a thing for helicopter shots. Like if you want to talk
Hmm.
about film fetishes, so I mean, just the way that this starts as it descends into the west side, and you're just hovering down like into it. You're dropped into that space. Like right then and there, it's like that's a good way to hook me into a movie.
And then
And
throw in
it's
some
so fucking
whistling.
it's
You
so
have
great how
this.
it is. Like you just get this environment, and then the music just slowly eases into it, and then just bam, you're there. The fingers snap. It's pretty catchy, and you're in
Mhm.
it. You're in that moment right there. You're there, just ready to go along with it, and that's a. I mean, regardless of the time or the genre, that's a really cinematic way to open a movie.
And you get this shark out of water story that happens real fast. Ha ha ha.
A typical punster here.
I wish I knew that song off the top of my head right now. Like I'm actually looking at a CDR copy of the soundtrack on my desk right now, just so my cheat sheet of the song titles. I know if I put this thing in, I could sing along to every song. Like off the top of my head, I can't recite yeah, maybe I Feel Pretty.
Which I found out that this was
I was gonna I
from.
was gonna ask like you
Yeah,
the
and then
Adam
I heard
Sandler
that.
Jack Nicholson moment that's gonna be familiar for you
I have
here.
not seen Anger Management. I
You
should
just seen
have,
that
but I have
scene?
not. I think I've heard Adam Sandler sing it. Maybe I've seen it in a commercial, but I've never seen the movie.
It's a pretty good scene. It's like he's like, "Why don't you sing West Side Story? Sing I Feel Pretty. You'll feel good." And it is one of those songs where you're just like, you're so in love. It's I don't want to sing it. It's alarming.
Nobody wants to.
It's alarming how charming I feel, 'cause I'm loved by a pretty wonderful. Like it's so over. Like it kind of does encapsulate when you get that budding romance. Like, oh, I found love. Like you feel that way. Like
I gotta say
kinda,
though, it's hard not to chuckle at it, honestly. And like when I first saw it, I was just like, oh, so that's where this is from. Yeah, it is kind of silly.
you know that's Natalie Wood,
I'm just
right?
saying,
And
like,
she's
yeah,
not nearly that dark skin. Like she's wearing a whole bunch of.
Oh yeah, no, no,
bronzer
no.
in this film.
I've heard like before that. Oh, it's such racist casting. Why would you have Natalie
Yeah.
Wood play a Latina? And then I see that, I'm like, oh, what?
Wow.
Like, and that accent too. Well,
Mm-hmm.
good performance. I'll give you that.
It
Like
is a
you're
good
dedicated. You're really into it, but even then, man, really? Like it is enough to slip into it, but still,
Could
it's
it
like,
be? Yes, it could. Something's coming. Something's good. If I can wait.
yeah, no, typical musical logic where I find it funny that Tony just doesn't want to join the brawl because he feels something's coming and it's going to be nice. But then you do get that dance encounter with the two of them, and with that very dreamy, like Red Shoes-like scenario, and it's such a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, like
I
just
yeah, I
on
love
70 millimeter too. Like it looked fucking gorgeous, man.
the
It
way
really
they
did.
meet, the way it's like spinning and spinning and spinning,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is. It's like the mannequin, whatchamacallit, mannequin challenge or whatever. Everyone else on the floor is gone, and you have the overhead. They have this spotlight. Everything is like almost translucent. It's shot so brightly, and yet it's like not quite. It's like the opposite of silhouette. Like everyone you literally can't focus on anything but them. It's like, I just saw you for the first time. I don't know who you are, but oh my god, we're so in love.
I gotta say though, like for just it's a musical, and I think you're just bound to buy into it like that. Like movies like this, they don't really cater to logic. Emotions fuel the entire narrative, and then the moment that happens, it's partly performance, and then just like the look that they give each other, and just that little interaction, and that's enough to sell it right there. Where it's like it's really. It's not a romance that's developed, but there's definitely that feeling there where you're able to invest in it just based purely on a feeling. And I think that's probably the best thing about musicals, at least the ones that work best for me. And like that's probably why it's such a I don't want to say divisive, that's not the word I'm looking for, but polarizing genre, because sometimes you're just not necessarily invested emotionally, and musicals really demand that out of you.
Yeah,
So yeah,
the
if you can't get pulled in from that, then you're not going to get into this. But if you can like at least appreciate it for the feelings it's trying to give you just for that, then yeah, it's a tough thing to explain, really.
It's not a great romance, like you said, but just
It's a musical romance.
the archetype of the star-crossed lovers, using the Romeo and Juliet setup. It
It's a
works really
familiar
well,
one. Yeah.
especially in a New York setting, like in the city life, with these different, cultural groups going head to head. Maybe the gang culture stuff doesn't work anymore, but even still, just that's really topical. Like it worked at the time. This is not too long after, or no, before actually, like the Zoot Suit riots. So this is stuff that people cared about. It's over the top, and it's singing and dancing. And
But I gotta say though, like just as far as the romance, there is probably the best scene of the movie is the one when they're like having that pretend wedding sequence and they're playing around in the store and they're just like putting out these props.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, this is my papa. It's like, it like,
forgot about that.
for
scene.
lack of a better word, and it's one you use more in your vocabulary than me, but yeah, it's a very cute scene, and it's very well played, and it's funny. And then the best shot in the movie happens when they're doing that pretend wedding, and then the sun sets and you get that window overhead framed perfectly with the cross right there that gives you that sort of like church-like feel. And it's a very beautifully artistically put together scene. And I mean, yeah, so like it's just, man, it's really nice.
Is that before or after One Hand, One Heart?
I think it's
The
right
big-
after the intermission. Like it's literally the moment before the brawl where
Okay.
Tony kills.
Yeah. So it's right after the intermission. Yeah. That brawl is so fucking weird. Like
It
the
is.
jet song
It's-
moment, like the way they're dancing that way is like kind of interesting. Like you said, it's big. Like my aunt was telling me on stage, it's fantastic.
Just the way that this movie's lens, like it is so wide. It's such a big space, and I'm sure a lot of that's to the sets that they build. But I mean, yeah, just their entrance there, like it.
But the way that death happens is so anticlimactic with like the hands coming out of
Well,
the huddle, and then it's like, oh, he's dead now. Like, oh no,
you,
oh, I killed him.
yeah,
Oh
but
no, now Maria won't fuck me.
if you're
Like
familiar with the Romeo and Juliet story, then I'm sure you know where it's all gonna go, and it's all gonna go down south pretty quick. But it is cheesy, but it's a musical, man.
I know you said G Officer Krupke is your favorite number.
That's probably the most fun one, yeah.
America has the best lyrics. That song is so funny. Like just having Anita, who's like a tour de force in this film, you can't. She carries the whole movie in some respects because there's not really anyone that interesting on the Jets besides Riff, and then on the Sharks, the only interesting person is Anita. It's like you got the two of them, and everyone else is just like, oh, we're in love, we're having fun, we're doing shit, and she destroys that scene. Like she is so amazing. And she's like, we can have our own washing machine. What we have though to keep clean. Just how quick the banter is. It's going back and forth
Yeah,
like
no, I mean
that.
it's great. Where they just like talk about
How
I
like America's the land of opportunity. Look, I got
yeah.
this big Cadillac, but oh, we can't get a car.
There's definitely like a bunch of quick quips that happen back and forth that are really fun before that number even starts.
Was it Cadillacs boom in America,
I
five in a
really
room
don't.
in America,
It is
industry
that
booms in
sequence that I saw it and I was
America.
like, okay, I recognize this tune. I know people love it. I was in a theater full of people that loved it, like that.
I like how it
obviously
kind
knew
of.
this movie. Like,
Mhm.
I got to stop this though real quick because just to talk about the 70 millimeter experience a bit. I had a projection issue, which was pretty fun experiencing that with people that knew this movie. Is that during the changeover of the reels,
Like
the
boo.
projectionist skipped a reel.
Really?
Yeah, and it was really funny actually when it happened because it was right when Maria got brought back home after the dance, and then it skips over to right out on the ledge when Tony and Maria meet, and then the like one of the
Oh,
guys
that's
like
a
a few
big
seats away
skip.
from
Yeah.
me, yeah, was just like no, 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 like just sounded like he was freaking out right away, and everyone was just kind of laughing it off. Like I had not seen the movie before, but
Hmm.
I knew the storyline, so I
Something
wasn't
missed
pissed.
out
But it was
there.
just
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
one of those things where yeah, there's the flaws of film presentation and all that, but we all kind of laughed at it. And I was like, that's part of the deal because it was such a beautiful print. Like, I mean, the color was really amazing on this thing. Like, I don't think I will see it look any better, honestly. And I mean, it's just a fun little anecdote for the film experience, and that's just something. It was a mistake that I think everyone kind of appreciated, weirdly enough. And yeah, you just can't get that anymore. Much like a movie like this won't be made, it can't be made today. I know that
La La
La
Land.
La Land. We're looking forward to
Hmm.
that, but even
Oh
that,
yeah.
it doesn't look like it's
I don't know. I
comparable
haven't
to
seen a
this.
trailer. I don't want to. I want to be
I've
100% surprised.
I've
I
been seeing them
love.
lately,
r-
and
It's like Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. They
mhm.
have great chemistry. I can't wait to see what they do in a modern musical set in Hollywood. So exciting. Do you like that cool song that happens towards the end here, where they're setting up? They're like, okay, so we just killed this dude. What do we do now? And they're sitting around trying to decide like who's the new leader of the gang, and he's like, got a rocket in your pocket, play cool, cool boy. It's like it almost goes like full on like beatnik, like kind of like scatterbrain jazzy, and it's like lit with blue tin, and they're just hanging out in dark lights, like snapping their fingers and shit. Like I like how certain songs here embody a different almost genre of music. Like I said, this one's kind of like jazz lounge type of thing or like smoking lounge, and then for America it's like almost like a like not a mambo necessarily because that's what the actual dance is, but it's
Mhm.
like chow ow ow, like it just it changes so fast, which you wouldn't expect for something like this. Most musicals, at least most that I've seen, like yeah, there is some variation in the tempo and whatever, but these feel kind of like culturally significant. Like the mambo scene during the dance, like that is
Well, it's
so.
definitely
Hmm.
culturally distinctive at that point, where it's a big it identifies that's I mean, this is a movie about a culture clash, and you got to distinguish the two in a very obvious way. So yeah, that is one way to do it.
I mean, yeah, you also got the color of the people's skin and
Well,
the
yeah, but I mean,
forced accents
that's not
and
enough.
the
It has to be
wardrobe.
how they act, how they, the little mannerisms that they have, how they move, the way that they communicate with each other, and even down to dancing styles, or hell, even fighting styles when you get down to the gang. Like, I'm sure there was research done as far as
Uh huh.
Just
No,
there has to be a little bit, at least over the years. I
maybe a
want to
little
say.
bit.
I mean, you were on a stage play version of this. Like, how do you
Not a stage
choreograph those?
actually. We were like,
You're in a school version of it. Like, how do you
yeah,
choreograph those fight scenes? How is it like? What's the difference as far as how the Jets move and how the Sharks move? There has to be something there, right?
we
Or
didn't
is
do
high
something like
school not
that.
that
I went to
strict?
the California Academy of Math and Science. Like we had 10th period
Hmm.
drama, which was in a theater with a stage where you pay money. What we did, we were like in the gym just on the basketball court. Like we didn't have any set dressing. Our wardrobe we had to provide ourselves. So like the Jets wore blue jeans and white shirts, and the Sharks wore like red shirts and black jeans or something. And then we had like very minor dance choreography. Most importantly, like for the actual dance sequence, like we did do some stuff there, like maybe for the finale. But it was mostly just us doing dialogue and singing. Like we didn't sing with backing track. Like it was us.
Hmm.
Really fun. I actually, like I said, I was action. I was, the hothead on the Jets. And so in the gang meetup in what Doc Shop, where all the
Hmm.
Jets hang out,
Yeah.
like when they have that moment where they meet up in action, like our riff actually slapped me. I was so mad. Like it totally worked in the play, but I was so mad because we like choreographed like yeah, fighting like how to do fake like pitfalls and pratfalls and how to fake a slap and all these things. And he actually slapped me like pretty hard. And so it's like part of the character in that moment, like the stage directions for me to be like pulled off the stage angrily. Like it wasn't an act. Like I was pissed off. I was
Then
flipping
later
him
on, you're
off and
like, well, you're
shit.
fucking dead, asshole. So there you go.
Not quite, but
No.
no. I said no. Riff does that. Oh yeah, Riff does die.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad. Fuck
Yeah.
you, Riff. You're an asshole anyway. So, like he's definitely I think the most attractive guy in this film, and he's also the biggest asshole, and he's the funniest. He gets it all, even though he's the second fiddle. Like he's not Tony. Like I just Tony is so boring. My aunt said it herself. It's like I can't picture him at any point being the
That he's
leader
a
of the
gang member. Yeah.
gang.
And right when you're introduced to him, he's like, I'm not going to the brawl because
I'm
something is
over it.
coming. I
Something's
can
coming,
feel it.
guys.
Something's coming. Like,
Even though that song is amazing, I love that song. Something's coming, I don't know what it is, but it is gonna be great. Around the corner, coming down the river, please deliver to
musicals.
me. So catchy. Like all these songs, I heard them so many goddamn times. Just going. If you've never done a production before, how many times you rehearse the thing? Like you first start off like doing Leiden readings together, and then doing it, trying to memorize it, and you do segments, and then you do scenes, and then you do the whole thing. Let's do the whole thing again. Let's do it one more time. Just the second half. Just this number. Singing, like the way you set up the class and everything is actually pretty funny. I didn't do it at the time, mind you, but you remember the Anybody's character, that girl that wants to be part of
Yeah.
the Jets, who some weird shit happens with her. I dated our version of Anybody's, like, and it was so weird too, because she always was kind of like that with me, always trying to like fit in, like trying to be part of the
For some
gang.
reason, I am not surprised.
Well, I'm not what. I don't go after boyish girls.
No, no, no. That's not what I'm saying at all.
What, that I dated someone in the production or what?
Never mind. Just
What? Like I don't know.
it's a very vague comment, but it's like for some reason I can fill in the enough blanks there for it to be like, yeah, I think knowing you, it seems like it makes sense.
Maybe. I mean, if I spend enough time around a certain group of people, I'm gonna probably find someone that I like.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work out that way. Like this is a different story for a different time. Probably
No,
never on
forget
this
it. You know I'm
podcast.
drinking right now too. But yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's like
we've
maybe if we do a 13 going on 30 episode, like she'll get brought up again. So, 1961 Best Picture winner, big stage play that was adapted from a best-selling novel, Romeo and Juliet, catchy numbers, good song and dance. You gonna buy this one?
yeah, sure. I mean, you just brought up the year, but I got to say as far as the viewing experience, like watching this last week so close after the election when there's so many there's incidents out on the streets not too far from where I am, literally on the street, where just so much hate being spewed to people that are just walking by, that like I'm not gonna lie, like some moments like it was felt around the audience, like that drugstore scene where Anita was kind of just being like pushed around by the gang, like it really hurt watching that, and it was pretty disturbing, and like I think really just in today's in today's modern climate, yeah, I think, even though you know how the Romeo and Juliet tragedy ends, like it really burns here in a way that just like it has way more substance than I think the original story does. Like, I mean, because all of the original story is just about two families feuding. Really, I mean, this is
Mm-hmm.
about a whole cultural clash that, fuck, this is still going on today. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it really did actually burn and resonated far more. And yeah, even though there was a theater full of people, like, yeah, there was massive applause at the end. Like, I'm sure a lot of these people had seen this before, but man, just something about this viewing felt very relevant to now. And it's like, yeah, it just, I think, I do think this is a great musical. It's definitely something that cannot be made today. And it's not something I will watch often, but like
It,
when I like musicals, I like I said, I tend to like the ones that always have like this big epic scope. And I mean, this movie, it really is just great escapism, and that even if its romance is not really that well developed, which I mean, what musical is, it really does at least give you that feeling of love. And it doesn't cater to logic, because your emotion, it just does that to your emotions. And I guess artistically and abstractly, if that's even a word, it doesn't
mm-hmm.
really ever lose that. It's silly and it's goofy, and I might be getting a little off track, but yeah, I mean, really, I do think, like, yeah, this, even watching this now, it is still memorable, and you definitely see why this is a classic. And like I said, which is my final point, I think that this does have more substance than really the original story source does itself, at least to our time now as we're recording this. But and yes, I think that's worth considering. But yeah, no, absolutely, I would buy it worth for $1. Like, I definitely enjoyed the experience. I mean, just the visuals were so rich. Like, we didn't even talk about the cinematography in this, which I found it funny actually to learn the guy's name, Daniel L. Fapp, which, Fapp, what a great last name. Very fitting. If you want something that looks just fucking beautiful, then you can probably pop in a Blu-ray of this, or there might be a streaming
Yeah,
HD version somewhere of this. It was on Netflix at one point. I know
it's
that.
on TCM on demand currently.
Yeah, well, there
That's
you
how I was gonna
go.
watch it. I think I'm still probably gonna watch it either tonight or tomorrow because I do want to. Because the songs are so damn good. Like most of them. Not like I said. I fucking hate One Hand One Heart. I think that's so fucking cheesy. It's like, oh, we totally love each other. Here's our song. It's like, no, I'm sorry. The Romeo and Juliet like balcony scene is much better. Like let our hands do what
It's
lips
far
do.
more
Like,
iconic, yeah. Like, I did see
but
the Baz Luhrmann adaptation earlier this year, which I talked about on Dollar Reviews, and yeah, like, I kind of enjoy this for the same reasons. They're both pretty excessive. This one, by its nature, because it is a musical, but I mean, like, yeah, it definitely, every camera move is dynamic. There's very striking, bold colors. Just in Maria's room, when you see the different like color glasses on the doors and all
mhm.
that, and like, every set has to be huge, or maybe these lenses are so wide that it makes everything feel so fucking big. But
Oh, this is probably 100% shot in a studio, except like
yeah, oh
the
yeah, absolutely.
establishing shots. This is a huge production when you have the biggest play and, like I said, a blockbuster novel, and it's an adaptation, and it's it's also like relevant at the time, and even still, I think the funniest thing you said like yeah, it's relevant now. It's so funny, most of the jets are like Polex or whatever. They're only a couple of years removed from where they were facing the xenophobia. Like they were the
Mm-hmm.
outsiders. Like, oh, you're white. Like I called them Italians earlier on mistake, but even Italians the same thing. Like nowadays, Italians are just considered like Caucasian. Once upon a time, it's like, oh, you're greasy, you're spick. Like get out of our country.
Well, I mean,
And
but
now it's
that's
just like, oh,
really,
your skin color's the same. And eventually, we're gonna get
prejudice
there.
is weird, because it's
Hmm.
like when it's a bunch of white people, then you start getting to that territory of like, oh,
Yeah,
the fucking Italians, the Germans, and all
exactly.
that.
Uh-huh.
And then when it's all of a sudden like another race comes in, then all of a sudden it's
Oh,
like,
we're
oh,
all
us
white. At
whites
least
gotta
we're
stick
white.
together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at least we're
it's
white. They're not white.
prejudice is so fucking stupid, man. Just how it works. There's no logic to it, and I don't know. It's like we've said this before. People love to categorize shit, and just
Hmm.
somebody has to be the whipping boy for whatever reason. I don't know. Just hate emerges for no reason whatsoever. The final point of this movie,
It's like
I
imagine.
cannot say it any better than that. Really, actually, that final delivery from Natalie Wood, even if she's in some brown face there, it's still stings. It's still very powerful. The final moments of that movie,
When
just
they're
that
sitting there
shot
with
when
their,
everyone's
yeah, when they're all
just
sitting there with
walking
their head
off. Yeah,
down,
it
yeah.
still really burns. I mean, how many musicals are there that don't really have happy endings?
I'm sure there's a good amount out there. Like not a lot,
Like this is
but
from Robert Wise, so there was that
yeah.
expectation there of like, okay, I did not even know this is a Romeo and Juliet story until I started watching it, and I was like, I see what this is. But I mean, yeah, that's the guy that did The Sound of Music years later after this. I mean,
Well, there's one.
talk
There's a
about a happy
depressing one.
ending.
Yeah, very
Hmm?
so such a happy ending. We escaped.
Sound of
We're out.
Music,
Yeah, we're done. We didn't quite stop the Nazis, but we got
but
out,
we made it
guys.
out. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
That is a
okay.
happy ending. Yeah.
I don't I'm not gonna say I hate the Sound of Music, but I don't champion it. Like I'm not a big proponent on musicals. Like for certain ones, like you can't escape how catchy the song and dance is, and this is
Mm-hmm.
a prime example of it. And I'd buy that for $1. I'm so related to it. Like I have a big part of my personality is indebted to this. Like the teacher, the director was so enamored by me. She was like, "You have to do 10th period next year." I was like, "I don't really feel like waiting an hour and a half after school to be in a production again." And I was like, "Maybe I'll do stage crew." And what I ended up doing was in 11th grade we did the Crucible. They always did the Crucible as a production. Like each class did a section, and so I got to direct a little
Who'd you play?
scene. I was the Marshal Warwick or whatever his last name was. I was the drunken uh like policeman basically. I was the sheriff. So I did this scene where it's like Tatuba and whoever Emily Proctor or whatever are in prison, and like I walk in with like a lantern in hand, like stumbling over, like oh yeah whatever. Like I don't remember exactly, but I got to be drunk on stage. Like I sold it well. I hope there's a tape out there I can watch it someday. It's like that's one of those things. It's like, oh, he's rich and famous now. Let's make a biography for him. If someone found that, put that in there. It's like when you see like the Johnny Depp picture when he's like 15 and shit. Like that would be one of mine. Either that or when I did my blackface monologue for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, fucking To Kill a Mockingbird. I was the trash man Zebo, and
Really?
I asked the professors like, can I come in blackface? And I did like I had the darkest foundation that they made, and my girlfriend at the time like applied it all over me, my face, my neck. I was wearing like a short sleeve shirt and some overalls, my hands everywhere. And I remember walking across campus, and people were just like looking at me and laughing. I show up in the class, and everyone's
Yeah,
like,
I'll
"Oh my
bet.
god!" And I'm at the front of the class, and I go up there and I do like my forced Southern accent, and I sold it hard. Like the character was like you had to write your own monologue based on like characterization. So I'm doing like the Southern drawl and everything,
Mm-hmm.
speaking in like Ebonic slash like Black English vernacular, like broken English. And I like he's a Bible guy, so like I took it out, like I read like some scripture, and then at the end of my presentation, like I went out in the class with the trash bag, and I was like, I know y'all's got some trash all over. Like, if you could help me out, please put this in there. Like all that kind of stuff was because of me being in this play. Like I
Mm-hmm.
for once in my life had like I knew I had like a history of dancing slightly before high school, but it kind of all culminated with me finally having access to something like that, even if it was a very underproduced production. um, just having that outlet, that creative freedom, like getting to see this movie, like being a romantic, like a hopeless one at that, like having a fun version of Romeo and Juliet that I could relate to, that I could sing along to, that I actually could root for both sides. Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure. If you like this show and you want to hear more of our wonderful voices on a weekly basis, check out 2 Cents. I'll recap what's happened in film, TV, and tech news.
We're also on the titular Dollar Review Show, a spoiler-free critique of new releases or anything we've discovered on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. You know, trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.